Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. We're back with Throgg, the Troll King, defending his home turf, Troll Country, against the nasty little plague rat, Lord Skrolk. Yes, indeed, we're going to take Norsca up against the Skaven today. Skaven came in Game 2, but they are present throughout the Warhammer world, so this is a perfectly thematic matchup, of course. Lord Skrolk leading his way here. And let's go ahead and go through the army compositions. We'll kind of talk about this matchup a little bit. I do think that Throgg, the Troll King, is the best pick in this matchup. He's got the Frostbite, so he can slow things down. That's going to be very important because Skaven are quick little things. They're hard to catch sometimes. He also has anti-large armor piercing, so he can deal with things like Plague Furnaces, which did get a change. Can also deal with Hellpit Abominations, things like that relatively well. Does have relatively low armor, but he has a regeneration, so of course he'll be resistant to things like a Liber Bubonicus and so forth. Berserkers will definitely take some skirmish here. You can see that I'm actually fighting Turin here. He's commanding the Skaven. He's got a couple of Gutter Runners here who are a great pick in this matchup. Skaven have a lot of missile options, so you do have to be a bit careful in that respect. But overall, I think Norsca has a pretty decent time here. We've got some Marauders and Berserkers mixed up front. We've also got the Maws of Savagery, Regiment of Renown Armored Skinwolves. These guys are good in certain matchups. I've found Skinwolves to be a little bit worse than they were in Game 1 overall. It seems like more factions have counters to them, and I'm not sure if they got some debuffs from Game 1 to Game 2. I'd have to go back and compare the stats one to one. They are still very strong units, certainly. These Maws of Savagery are some of the best. They are very expensive at 1,500 points, but they're an elite armor-piercing anti-large unit with regeneration, physical resistance, 70 armor. They've got a lot going for them. We've also got a Famir Balefiend Lore of Fire. Balefiends are going to be the strongest caster choice, I think, unless you want to take Lore of Metal, because Balefiends can't take Lore of Metal. We've also got some Chariots. A little bit of a long-winded introduction, so before we miss that mainline engagement, I am going to pause it just briefly here. Got some Marauder Chariots and these Ice Wolf Chariots. So the Ice Wolf Chariots are pretty expensive, but they do, let's see here, they do armor-piercing missiles, very interesting. And they also have anti-infantry and frostbite, most importantly. This frostbite means that they're going to be very good at catching things like gutter runners. Gutter runners with their poison and snare nets can be very tricky to catch for Norsca, but if you can get on top of them with these Ice Wolf Chariots and apply that frostbite debuff, you'll be able to just run them over pretty effectively. Overall, very strong units. Chariots in general can be very strong against the Skaven if they don't bring the proper counter units. And let's go ahead and look at Turin's build here. He's got Lord Skrolk on foot. Of course, Lord Skrolk can only go on foot, but he's also got a Plague Priest up on a Furnace here and a Warlock Engineer with the Warpstone armor. Both of these drain effects, you can see this one here for the Billowing Death for the Plague Furnace. It does have to be in melee. Now, the same thing with the Mortis Engine. So all of the constant drain effects now, the bearer of the effect does have to be in melee, from the Fey Enchantress, the Mortis Engine, to these two Skaven drain effects here. So just something to note, guys, it is a bit of a change. Both these guys, you know, the Warlock Engineer does AP in melee, is not super tanky, but the Plague Priest at least has 90 armor, does have that Contaminate, and does AP anti-infantry, so you probably want him in melee anyway most of the time. He's also got a Hellpit Abomination, a mix of Sword and Board Storm Vermin, which I like quite a bit in this matchup. Typically you would expect the low armor stuff, and Berserkers will just cut through a lot of the low armor Skaven infantry, so Storm Vermin are definitely a solid pick here, as are the Storm Vermin with Halberds. He's got a few Clan Rat Spears around for support. And of course, he'll be summoning up plenty more numbers with Lord Skrolk's summon here. So let's go ahead and kick the battle into full gear. Sorry about the long-winded introduction, guys, but there's a lot of new stuff to get through, and I do want to get a nice cinematic shot of this frontline engagement unfolding. You can see the Storm Vermin bearing the charge actually quite well. Once the charge bonus wears off, it'll actually start to turn against those Marauders pretty badly. Obviously, Brutes of the Hound are unbreakable, so they'll hold at least for a time there. Meanwhile, in the center pocket, you can see Throgg and his Maws of Savagery trying to push through and get on that Plague Furnace. If we can at least keep it out of melee, it's not going to be applying that Billowing Death debuff, so that's pretty good for me. We can then turn our attention to start to take out the Storm Vermin a little bit. You can see the Marauders actually fared pretty badly in that engagement. We are starting to get the Chariots around the back line here, trying to find a hole. Turn's doing a very good job screening with the storm vermin here, so we're going to have to pull back a little bit or else face some nastiness here, but that does pressure the Plague Furnace to come back this way, which I can then get some damage in with the Maza Savagery and Throgg here, but very nice Burning Head coming down, roasting out a lot of these low-tier Skaven troops and breaking this pocket. I needed these Berserkers and Marauders to collapse in this backline area and just start to clog things up here because we need to tie down Storm Vermin. You can see my Chariots are starting to get into the Gutter Runners a little bit here and push them off. Once these guys apply that Frostbite debuff, and even hitting one unit model like that can apply that Frostbite debuff, once that debuff is applied, they'll be a lot easier to catch. You can see Lord Skrolk, though, relatively safe here. The Bale Fiend did take a ton of damage, but then we pulled him back, and the Maza Savagery and Throgg now in here. They're going to be putting an absolute pounding on this Hell Pit Abomination. Obviously, all this anti-large, and we also did drop a Flaming Sword of Ruin from that Bale Fiend there, and just got a huge timing burst to the point where this Hell Pit Abomination is very, very low. It did get a healing proc there, which is a very, very nice for turn, but we're going to be dispatching these Maza Savagery to just chase it off the side. If we can at least keep it routed here, it won't come back from routing and regenerate. So we want to definitely keep it off the battlefield as much as possible. It's definitely still a huge threat, no doubt. The tip for you guys, if you do break like a Hydra or a Hell Pit Abomination, things like that, those big regenerating monsters, you need to chase them off the side, otherwise they'll just come back. Meanwhile, in the back line, you can see Chariots doing their job, running down these Gutter Runners, screening out, and as the front line starts to collapse for me, because I'm not 100% sure that those Berserkers will be able to cut through all those Storm Vermin, we are going to be able to bring these Chariots back in the late game and kind of do some anti-infantry damage in that way, but for the time being, they're busy cleaning up those Gutter Runners, which is going to help protect Throgg most importantly. If we can clean up a lot of the ranged units, Throgg, I mean, the fact that he has 55 armor is his biggest weakness, but another Overcast Burning Head here from that Famir Bale Fiend, who, despite taking some early damage, you can see he's about, maybe 40% HP there. It's going to be pretty rough. We did come in and drop that Wintertooth Crown, and one of you guys asked me, did the Wintertooth Crown get buffed? It is now an area of effect around Throgg, which I think is a lot better. Because you can do something like that. You come in, drop it, these Marauders become unbreakable, and they'll at least hold for the time being, tie up some unit models. Turns aggressively pathing after this Bale Fiend, though. After seeing that Burning Head, he definitely knows the danger there. Meanwhile, we've got an isolated pocket here of these Berserkers taking on a unit of Storm Vermin. Very, very bloody fight here. Berserkers will trade pretty well with the Storm Vermin with Halberds, just because the Halberds don't have the best melee defense, and Berserkers have really good melee attack. They also have a true anti-infantry bonus of 5, so very interesting, especially once they start to reach their higher tiers of Enrage, where they have more physical resistance and melee attack. They're really going to put a pounding on these Storm Vermin, despite the fact that they don't necessarily have the best AP values. They just have great overall weapon strength with 13 AP, 39 non-armor piercing damage. So yeah, at this point we're coming back in the late game here. The Chariots have finished their job of finishing off those nasty ninja rats, so they're coming back in the pocket here, going to be plowing through a lot of these Storm Vermin. Throgg kicking them in the face, having a grand old time, and hopefully turning his attention to this Plague Furnace here, because the more the Plague Furnace sits in melee like this, the more it's going to drain. The Warlock Engineer is also still alive, so anytime he gets into melee, he'll also be applying his drain here. But the Maza Savagery came back from chasing off that Hell Pit as well, so just bringing back all the units from the corners of Troll Country into this last final stand here with the Skaven. Throgg and his boys just putting an absolute pounding in here, and yeah, like I said, I definitely think that Throgg is the most competitive pick in this matchup. I mean, obviously, I've only played this matchup a few times, but just in general, he's very resistant to the Liber Bonicus, so you're not going to get Lord sniped in that way. Wolfric, if he's on the Mammoth, he just has so much health that he's probably going to be hard to Lord snipe, but he's also a huge target for things like Poison Wind Globadiers or Warp Lightning Cannons. Warp Lightning Cannons in general might be pretty tough in this matchup, although the Norskins can be fast. I mean, they can bring like Marauder Horsemen and other fast attack units like these Chariots and so on, so it can be tough to protect artillery against Norskins, but it's an interesting matchup. You know, there's a lot of different ways you can go. If you go really ranged heavy with the Skaven, with a lot of Death Runners and Gutter Runners, it can be tough to deal with. It's interesting. I'll be very excited to play this matchup more as the patch rolls on. And of course, the Skaven and the Lizardmen both are due for their regiments of renown in the near future, I would imagine. Hopefully, we don't have to wait as long for the next DLC after this one, but at this point, they're the only factions without regiments of renown, and we, of course, can expect a Lord pack for them at some point. So, yeah, once they get theirs, it will be a lot more of an even matchup, but at this point, I think even still, it's quite even. Skaven can definitely bring a lot of tools here, but in this battle, Throgg and his Norscan boys are going to be able to pull things back here. The Ice Wolf Chariots just coming in and being an absolute nuisance in the late game. And yeah, we do have some rallied units here that I'm not microing super well, but yeah, super fun battle. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. We'll kind of fast forward a little bit through this late game where I kind of kite out with Throgg a little bit, and I'm just trying to clean up. Ooh, a nice vomit attack coming through and hitting those storm vermin. The vomit attack actually does pretty good against armored infantry. I haven't really tested it against cav or single model entities too much, but from my experience, I mean, it's not amazing. It's not like a Star Dragon Breath attack or even like a Sun Dragon Breath attack by any means, but it can do a lot of damage if you get it in the right pocket. But yeah, Famir Balefiend and Lore of Fire somehow still alive here with 450 HP left, dropping another Flaming Sword of Ruin here just to stack the extra damage here as Throgg kicks the last of these Plague Rats in the face. Of course, I say Plague Rats. It's mainly the one Plague Rat here who, oh man, the Balefiend just came in and whacked him in the back of the head. Of course, the Balefiend does Sunder Armor as well, so Skrolk's going to be at literally 0 armor right now. And yeah, man, brave little Plague Rat, though, despite being surrounded by Throgg and these Ice Wolf Chariots and everything, is still not routing, but you can see from the time left on the battle, he is going to be routing off very, very shortly. So, very fun battle, well played to Turin. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. Like I said, it's a super fun matchup and one I'm definitely looking forward to playing more of in the future. I do think it's very dynamic, but just from my perspective, from the few battles that I've played, I do think Throgg's a very strong choice here. I mean, obviously, Lore of Fire is generally pretty good against the Skaven because you can get that burnt debuff, and Flaming Sword of Ruin is going to be good against things like Hell Pits and so on. So I do like the Famir with Lore of Fire here. Of course, Famir in general a pretty strong caster, and despite this guy taking a lot of damage early on, he was able to come back in the late game and get a lot of work done. 104 kills in total from those 2 burning heads. Really nicely done. Throgg himself racking up 79, mostly in melee, just kicking Storm Vermin in the face. 90 kills in the Icehorn Marauders. I really like them in this matchup, especially because when you're facing a late game swarm like that, with Skrolk just continuously summoning up more and more clan rats, that perfect vigor actually comes in huge for these guys. They can stay fighting fresh. I mean, obviously they'll still take some damage, but they'll be fighting fresh into the late game. Just a very strong unit. And Berserkers here obviously can be pretty good. Turin actually brought a really nice counter build, and I very much like his pick of Storm Vermin here. Storm Vermin Sword and Board is kind of a counter meta thing because normally you think of Skaven as low armor infantry, and certainly the clan rat summons and things like that are. But Storm Vermin actually held their own, and I think they're one of the few Skaven infantry that can really stand toe-to-toe with the Berserkers. So very nice pick there, but it was just the Chariots coming in the late game, despite the fact that he cleaned up my infantry pretty well. Chariots were able to see off the Gut Runners, who really didn't pay out, and losing the Hell Pit without him paying out was pretty rough as well. That's a pretty significant investment. So yeah, overall super fun battle though. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button so every time I upload a new video you'll be notified. We're going to keep it coming with more early access content, so stay tuned for more, and we'll see you next time.